So now what we need to do is, it says determine if a sequence is arithmetic, find out its common difference, the explicit formula, and then the recursive formula, and then the three terms in the sequence after the last one's given. So the first thing we need to know, if it is, if it's arithmetic, we need to find what we call the common difference. So write this down, because this will help you. You don't have to write it down every time, but the common difference is just going to be the letter D. Now the way that we can find the common difference is you're going to, if you take your calculator and go down here, use the cursor until you get to the multiply, divide, plus, minus sign, and then just hit enter, or you can hit the center of the cursor, and what that will do is open up this thing. Now the common difference is you're going to subtract the second term from the previous term, but you have to do it quite literally. Okay? So now what that means is I'm going to say, in order to get from 22 to negative 78, I'm going to have to say negative 78. So you're going to use this negative sign right here, and I'm going to say negative, then 78, and then I'm going to use the subtraction sign, which is a different one, and I'm going to subtract 22. So I'm going to take the second term and subtract the first term from it. Then I'm going to hit enter. Now that means minus 100. So I think the common difference is minus 100. In other words, in order to get the next term, I have to subtract 100 from it. So now to test that theory, I'm going to say negative 78, which is the second term, and if I subtract 100 from it, oops, I did one too many. Let me go back one. If I subtract 100 from it, I should get 178, and I do. Obviously, you could do this in your head, but I just want to show you how to use a calculator. Now, to get the next term, I could just, take my answer, which is negative 178, and then subtract 100 one more time, and I should get negative 278. Does that make sense? So now my common difference then would be minus 100. Does that make sense? Now the next three terms would be, I think, in order to do that on my calculator, here's the cool thing about your calculator. If I just hit enter again, it'll automatically subtract 100 from the last term. So my next three terms should be negative 378. And again, you could do this in your head. What's the next one? Yeah, negative 478. But if I hit enter again, it'll be confirmed on my calculator. And if I hit enter again, it'll be negative 578. So my next three terms are going to be negative 478 and comma negative 578. And the only thing I'm doing is I'm subtracting 100 from this one to this one to this one, and then I keep going. Okay? Now the next thing is the explicit. Now the explicit one is interesting because there's two ways to write the explicit version. It's basically coming up for a formula that if I plug in the letter N representing the term, that I'll actually get the first term. So I want to write a formula. This is the explicit formula. And I'm going to write the first one here, and then I want you to think about it, and then we'll go back. A sub n should equal to an equation. All right? So now each one of these terms is this is like a sub 1, this is like a sub 2, this is a sub 3, and a sub 4. So I'm going to plug in the number 1 for n. So I'll just write this down, and then we'll do some more in a little bit, and it should be easier for you. This is what we call the explicit formula. Now what that means is that my first term, which is 22, should be a sub 1, which is the first term. Okay? And if I plug that into the formula, I get 122 minus 100 times wherever there's an n, I plug in 1. What's 100 times 1? 100. What is 122 minus 100? Just 22. Does that make sense? Now I could test this and do the second term. I could say a sub 2 is equal to 122 minus 100 times 2. But really, if I say 122 minus 100 times 2, whoops, I got to get the times in there, times let's just put it in parentheses so we can see it. Blank, and then do this. Like that. Guess what I get? I get the second term, which is 78. Does that make sense?